Hey, boys and girls, welcome to Math Today. This is page 353 in your math journal. And this is that parent letter, the family letter that you can read together with an adult in your house because we're starting Unit 6 today. And today, what we're going to start with is something that you should be familiar with from second grade. We're going to talk about those, if you remember the phrase fact families. We're going to look at some math mountains. So I want you to turn to page 355. And we're going to start working on page 355 and 56 together. And then you're going to do another page in your math journal. You're going to turn in a photo of all 3 pages separately. I want you to work along with me, so make sure you take good notes. And then you're going to be doing the last page by yourself. All right, so we're going to talk about math mountains. And let's look at the vocabulary beaver up here. We've got these words addend, total, and sum. Now, the total and the sum are really the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to write the word same, and you're going to do the same thing. Remember, I write and you write, right? We're copying it down so that you have good notes to take. So the total and the sum are the same thing, right? A sum is when we add numbers together, we get the sum. Like when we multiply numbers together, we get the product, right? When we add, it's called the sum. The numbers that we add together are called the addends. So we're going to look at this math mountain that they have here for number 1, and we're going to fill in that whole kind of chart, but we're going to take one row at a time. So I want you just to be patient and really think through what we're doing. You might know this, but you may not know the vocabulary, or you may not really be thinking about what you're actually doing. And I want you really to pay attention. So we're going to look at this math mountain. And then we're going to look at these equations that are next to it. And we're going to talk about the relationships that you see. Remember, they're fact families. So all these numbers are related somehow, right? So we're going to label all these different numbers with either an A or a T, depending on if they're addends or they're totals. And then we're going to see also how we can write it differently. So we know that the top number, right, the top of our mountain is always the total. When we add things together, we call that the sum. It's the fancy math word for total. The 2 numbers at the bottom are the addends. Those are the numbers we combine to get the sum, right? So over here, you'll notice they start right here with the sum, or with the total of 110, because that's what's on top. So we're going to label this T for total. Okay, then these other 2 numbers are the addends. And then I want you to look at this one next to it. All they've done is they've taken that total and they've flipped it and put it on the other end, right? Because 110 equals 70 plus 40. But another way to say it is 70 plus 40 equals 110, right? We can say it both ways. The equal sign just means that the value on either side will match. So this side is 110, this side is 110. So on this matching one, we're just going to put the addends first, and then we're listing the total. Okay, so there is where we've added these 2 addends together to get that total. Now, notice what they did here. 110 equals 40 plus 70. These are the same addends, right? They've just flipped them around. Right? Same thing that we can do in multiplication. Right? We can flip those factors. You can flip the addends too. This is still our total. These are still our addends. They're just in a different order. So that's what they did over here. They just flipped them. We still have addends, and now our total's at the end. Okay, so we didn't change any numbers. We just changed where they were in our equation. Okay, remember, an equation has an equal sign. An expression does not. So let's look at this next one. 40 equals 110 minus 70. Oh, so here is a different way of saying a subtraction problem, right? We've added these 2 by flipping. Now we're going to subtract. So now I've got 40, right? 40 is an addend. It tells me right there. My 110 is my total, and I'm subtracting one of the addends, right? When I start with a total and I subtract the addend, I get the opposite addend that's left over, right? Over here, they're writing it a little bit differently, right? They took what was at the beginning and they're putting it at the end of our equation now. They're just changing where that equal sign goes. So we know 110 is our total. We're taking away one addend, and we're left with the other addend. Right? We didn't change numbers, still the same family. Here's the last one. All they did, right, was change the factors, right? We started with, or not the factors, the addends. We started with 40, now we're going to start with 70. Right? We started here, now we're going to start here. 70 is an addend, 110 is our total, we're left with the other addend. All they're doing now is moving that equal sign to the end of the equation. This is more what you're used to seeing. Total minus the addend gives us the other addend, right? So thinking about fact families, right? We have totals and then we have the addends, and you want to make sure that you are able to distinguish between them. And now for number 2, we're going to look down here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to use this as a model to write equations for this math mountain. Okay, so if I look at that bottom number, and I'm going to move my recorder up to the top there. If I look at this math mountain, I know that this is my addend, and this is my addend, and this is going to be my total, which is also called the sum when we add things together, right? So we're going to use this information, different numbers, but we're going to do the exact same thing. So on the top, they started with the total, right? For the first 2, they started with the total, and they just flipped those factors. So let's start with our total of 140. We're going to write 140 again on that second line because we know we're going to start with the totals. So I know that 140 equals these numbers added together. So I'm just going to put those numbers as part of my equation. On my next line, I'm just going to flip them around. I started with 80 up here, and I'm going to start with 60. Right? You know that. We just flipped those addends, just changed the order of them. So on the other side, all we're going to do is move that total to the end. So we're not going to start with the total. We're going to start with our 2 addends, and then we're left with our total. Same thing here. We're going to start with the 2 addends and end with our total. Okay? Now, we're going to start with our addends. Okay, one of our addends is 60. The other one is 80. Right? And they're both going to equal a subtraction problem. So if I start with 60, I'm left with my total 140, and I have to take away the 80. I want to make sure I have all 3 numbers as part of my equation because they're part of that same math mountain. Okay, so now if I start with 80, I'm going to take away 60 instead. Right? And again, I'm just going to move my total or my equal sign to the other end of my equation. So now I'm going to have 140 minus 80 equals 60. We're more used to saying it that way, to starting with that big total. 140 minus 60 equals 80, right? You'll notice we just really flipped those addends again. Okay, so make sure, if you've not gotten this all copied down, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so you can see the whole page at once. Make sure you get that copied down because you're going to be taking a picture of your page along with the next 2 pages. All right, so make sure you can freeze the video and get it copied down if I was going too fast. That's the amazing thing about video. Okay, now we're going to flip to the back and do some word problems. And these might be, maybe some new phrases. You maybe never thought about these particular ways to think about word problems when we're adding and subtracting. Okay, so there are different types of word problems. and I think you're going to understand after we read it and I kind of point it out. So it says, right, add to, and I want you to underline add to, because that's what's happening. We're adding to something. Let's read it. It says, Chris's group picked 80 apples. His mother's group picked 60 more apples. How many apples do they have now? So let's bracket our question, right? And we're looking for our label. How many what? Apples. Okay, and this is an add to because we start with 80 apples, right? And then his mother picked 60 more. So now we're adding 60, right? So we're looking for that unknown. We don't know the total. So if I'm going to draw my math mountain, and remember, when we're doing the deal, draw, equation, answer, label. Remember, we did a lot of that with our multiplication and division problems. Draw, equation, answer, label. When we add or subtract, we can do a math mountain. So if I think about these two numbers are being added together, those are my add-ends. They're going to go on the bottom. And we're going to have to try to figure out, right, that unknown total at the top. I already know that apples is going to be my label. Add those numbers together. What do you get? Remember, we stack ones on top of each other, tens on top of each other. Okay, zeros, 8 plus 6 more. I like to make a 10, so I take a couple away to make a 10, and then I have 4 left. 140. So all together, they have 140 apples. Okay, we added to what we started with to find our total. Okay, now, we're going to do a take from. Okay, we're taking something. Chris's group had 140 apples. They ate 80 of them. How many apples do they have now? Right? So taking from, we have 140 and they're taking 80 away, right? Because they ate them up. I'm sure they were Honeycrisp because those are the best. So if I start with 140 and I take away 80, I don't even think you have to do any math because you already did it above, right? What's the other add-end that we're looking for? Well, it's 60, right? We can see it right here. So we know our answer is going to be 60 apples, right? And I'm going to have the same information, except my unknown, my missing information is going to be down here now. I had to try to figure that out. So 140 minus 80. 0 cancels out. I have 4 and I want to take away 8, but I can't do that, right? So I have to ungroup my hundreds. Right? So my 4 becomes 14. 14 minus 8, we've already done this above, is 6. So 60 apples. Okay, and remember, we can add these numbers together to get the total. That's one way to check yourself. Okay, and you should do that when you're working on addition and subtraction. A lot of people missed a lot of their math on Monday. There are only 9 problems, and some people got all 9 wrong because they just made a simple mistake. So make sure you check yourself if you need to. Okay, we know that we're using the same set of numbers here. The next one is either a put together or a take apart. I don't know which one it is yet. We're either going to put something together or we're going to take apart. Okay, and when we're taking apart from our total. Let's read it first and decide which one it would be. It says Allison's class brought 70 juice boxes to the picnic. Taylor's class brought 50 juice boxes. How many juice boxes did they bring all together? Okay, that all together is a key word that should tell me in my brain that I'm putting some things together, right? I'm trying to find the big total. It's asking me how many juice boxes they brought all together. So we're kind of lumping them, right? Putting them all in one big pile. So this is going to be a put together, right? Similar to the add to, right? A little bit similar. So we're going to take our 70 and we're going to add our 50. Those are our add-ends. And we're going to be looking for how many juice boxes. Okay, so if I'm going to draw a picture, I've got my math mountain. I already know my add-ends. I'm looking for that total, that sum. So I'm just going to add those together. 70 plus 50 more. We're putting together two groups. Okay, I know 5 and 5 more would be 10. This is just 2 more than that. So that would be 120. So 120 juice boxes all together that they brought. All right, we put two different groups together. Okay, now look. There are 120 juice boxes at the picnic. That sounds familiar. Allison puts 70 on tables and leaves the rest in the cooler. How many juice boxes are in the cooler? So we know juice boxes is going to be our label. Right? If they give us that total, then we know we're going to be taking that apart. We're going to start with that big number, right, and take it apart. So I have 120, and I know that she is using up 70 of them. And then we're left with a different amount that are left in the cooler. Okay, you already know the answer because it's the opposite, right, of the one above. So we already know that there are 50 left in the cooler, right? But we want to show that we know that. We have our sum or our total. We have one of our add-ends. And we're trying to find the other one. So we're taking this apart. So 120 minus 70. Even though we know our answer, we want to show our work, show proof. I have zeros. I have 2 and I want to take away 7. I can't do that. I don't have enough, right? More on the floor, you have to go next door. So now I'm going to take those away and I'm left with 12 tens instead of 2 tens. The difference between 12 and 7 is 5, okay? Just how we got 50 juice boxes. So a lot of word problems today, right? Adding and subtracting. I'm going to zoom this out so that if you need to copy down all that hard work, you're going to be turning in another photo of this page. Okay? So make sure when you turn in your assignment today that you are going to have 3 pictures attached. Don't turn it in if you don't attach those 3 pictures because I'm just going to send it right back to you. I want to see your proof and all your hard work. Okay? Let's look at page 357. Okay, this looks very familiar to you. Right? It says to represent word problems with math tools. It says the equations in Math Mountains below show the word problems on page 356. Okay, I want you to circle that. Okay. And I want you to show your understanding by completing these 4 boxes. Okay, and then there are a few more things at the very bottom of the page that you're going to fill out thinking about what you know and what you've learned a little bit of today. So pay attention because these empty boxes are what you're going to fill in along with number 8 and number 9 at the bottom. Okay, you're going to take a picture of this as well and turn it in so that I can see all your great thinking today. All right?